welcome back to Food Prep Guide. We are back in the kitchen today with a saving money at the grocery store video. Now we have several videos on this channel about ways to save money at the grocery store, and I try to touch on different topics, different tips, different ideas in each video so that I'm always adding to the new ideas and giving you more tips instead of repeating myself. So I try to take a different angle and just provide a variety of tips and ideas for saving money. We have videos on some frugal swaps that you can make food-wise, frugal swaps you can make non-food-wise. We have a whole playlist on pantry cooking, frugal meals, using what you have on hand to make the cheapest meals possible. So many videos about that. But today I want to take a different approach, and I want to talk about ways that you can save 50% or more at the grocery store using your skills. This is something that is near and dear to my heart. It is something that, an area of life that I have grown in significantly. I hope I have, just in the last decade or so. And I have seen the just incredible benefit and savings of learning these skills and using these skills in the kitchen to save money at the grocery store. Now, right now, with inflation being the way it is, the cheapest food items have always been processed foods, right? Pretty much. You can get a whole chicken pot pie for 99 cents from Banquet. You can get a whole can of soup for $2.50. I have no idea what the prices are these days, but I'm going from the last time I shopped for those items. It's almost always, the most processed foods are going to be the cheapest. And nowadays, even if we are food conscious, even if we do understand about the consequences of eating those processed foods and non-organic foods, nobody can afford them anymore. I mean, of course some people can, but I would say the average Joe cannot afford to do the organic and all natural and non-GMO and pesticide free and herbicide free and hormone free and all of the things free. Who can afford that anymore? And so a lot of people who even are health conscious are almost like being funneled and forced into these really cheap and processed foods. And even before inflation hit, I know that my generation, I'm a millennial, and then the generation behind me, Gen Z, whatever, I don't even know what letter they're on now, but even before all of this inflation hit, it was just the norm to buy those processed foods, buy those microwave meals, buy those pop into the oven meals. And so many people think that's the cheapest option, or more importantly, it's the most convenient option. And I don't think that my generation understands the cost of that convenience. Yes, the price tag in the store might be the cheapest option, but you're going to pay for it in your pharmaceutical bill, you're going to pay for it in your quality of life, and you're going to pay for it in the dependency that my generation is forming with depending on other people to feed them. This is, okay, I can tell I'm getting on my soapbox. I need to get off and settle down. But it's just, there's a cost to convenience. There's a cost to cheap processed foods. So today I want to talk to you about 4 or 5 specific food items, but skills compared with those food items that can save you the most money at the grocery store. Let's get started. Tip number 1 is going to be make and can your own soups. Now, what if I don't know how to can? I can't do that. This tip isn't for me. I'm going to click off this video. Hold on. This is something that I'm speaking to my generation. I'm speaking to millennials. I'm speaking to Gen Zers. I'm speaking to whatever the alphabet comes next. If you don't know these skills right now, how to can, how to dehydrate, how to garden, now is the time to learn these skills. It's not about a self-sufficiency lifestyle. It's not about being a hippie, or it's not about, being an organic, crunchy mama, those things. It's not about those things anymore. It's about decreasing your dependency, because it's not always going to be there. The food at the grocery store is not always going to be there. I guess I can't say that for sure. I can't predict the future, but I am just trying to give you a friendly heads up that more than likely there's going to come a day in our time when the grocery store shelves are either not full or not affordable. And that second point is probably going to be the most likely, that yeah, there's going to be plenty of food on the shelves, but you're not going to be able to afford it. What are you going to do then? So this is something that we have the time now. If you don't have time, I know we are all so stretched for time. But this is one of those things that deserves to be a priority if eating well is a priority for you, and I would dare say that eating well is a priority for most people. Now is the time to learn these skills. So, make and can your own soups. When I was I was trying to find a cost comparison, and I was trying to figure out what's the percentage that I can realistically tell you that this skill can save money, and I am in the 60% range. So I looked up a can of Campbell's Chunky Vegetable Soup. Vegetable soups are something I make all the time. We have constantly things coming in from the garden. When we're coming up on preservation season, I like to kind of start cleaning out my canning pantry with food items from last year's harvest that we might not have worked through quick enough throughout the year. I like to pull those things off the shelf and just make one giant pot of all sorts of different vegetable soups. Now, when it comes to canning, we have a whole lot of liberty. I'm getting ahead of myself, but we have a whole lot of liberty to can our own homemade recipes versus with other canning items, it's like a kind of really strict if you want to do things the safest way possible. You have to follow these particular recipes, but that's not the case with soups. There are absolutely specialty guidelines, safety guidelines that we need to follow, but we have a whole video on how to can soup safely, so I won't go into all of those tips and advice, but I will drop a link in the description box below that will teach you step by step how to can your own soups safely at home. So like I said, I got a Campbell's Chunky Soup. It was $2 and, I don't want to get it wrong, $2.26. Now, I have a hard time putting a dollar amount on my homemade soup because it just comes from vegetables and scraps from out in the garden. I make broths, chicken broths, bone broths. Well, I don't make all my broths. That's okay. You can absolutely use water and then just add a cube of chicken bouillon or add a couple cubes of beef bouillon. There are ways around making soups without having to can your own broths and can your own chunk tomatoes and can your own, tomato juice. There are ways around that are still so much more frugal than what you can buy at the grocery store. So in my case, I do have a hard time putting a number on it because most of it comes from the garden. Most of it comes from, chicken broth from my chickens in the backyard. So it almost feels like these jars of soup that I make all the time, it almost feels like they're free, but I understand there are absolute costs involved. Spices, seasonings, the seed costs from when I planted that cabbage or tomatoes or peppers or onions, whatever that case may be. So there absolutely is a cost, but it is nowhere near $2.26 a jar. I can guarantee you that. So make and can your own soups, and that includes cream of soups. How many of you use cream of chicken, cream of mushroom, cream of celery? I do all the time. I live in the South. Casseroles are a big thing. Those cream of soups star a lot in crock pot dishes, so that's a big way to use them. But you can make that yourself at home too, and you don't even need to can it. There is a base recipe that you can make with butter, flour, and milk. Butter, flour, and milk, yes, and then just seasonings that you probably already have in your pantry. We have a video dedicated to how to make all of those cream of soup mixes. I will link that in the description box below as well. That in itself is a skill that will save you a lot of money at the grocery store. Think about never having to buy any type of cream of soup mix again, or any type of thickeners for your casseroles, any type of cream base, your Alfredo sauce, your mac and cheese sauce. All of that can be made with this one master mix. Check out that video in the description box below. I promise you it is worth it. So when I talk about cook and can your own soups, I'm including all of those cream of soups. You can just save a significant amount of money. And like I said, if you're someone who has never canned before, that is okay. You got to start somewhere, and canning soups is an easy place to start because it is very easy. Step-by-step instructions in the description box below. Point number 2, make your own pantry mixes. This is another one of those things where it seems like it's cheaper to buy it at the store. Pantry mixes, what am I talking about? Waffle mixes, pancake mixes, biscuit mixes. I'm thinking about that sausage gravy mix. Just all of those pre-made kind of baked good cake mixes, brownie mixes, corn muffin mixes, those Jiffy corn mix, all of that can be made at home. Now those things are so cheap at the grocery store. So when we're talking about frugality, it almost makes more sense to buy that super cheap thing at the grocery store. But number one, the ingredients are going to be absolutely terrible. Now I know we are living in a time where we really don't have the liberty to be perfectly health conscious in all things, because perfectly health conscious is extremely expensive. I get that. But the amount of what you're going to save, even though that stuff is so cheap at the store, you can still make it cheaper at home, because most of those things at the store is just flour, different types of sugars, salts, peppers, different types of seasonings, baking powder, baking soda, all of those different things, cornmeal, just in different ratios in different formats. And you can, all of those items are cheap. You can buy them in bulk. You can buy them not in bulk if you want to, but putting them all together, you're going to get a higher yield out of your homemade recipes more often than you do high yield at the grocery store. So it comes out to price per serving is almost always going to be more frugal to make homemade. Now, what kind of pantry mixes am I talking about? I've already listed those off, but we have a video on how to make some of the most common pantry mixes, and I will link that in the description box video below. I don't want to sound like a broken record with all of this description box links, but I just want this video to be as helpful and impactful as possible. I don't want to mention a tip and then not tell you how to do that tip. So that's why we have these whole videos dedicated to these singular topics. So I don't want to spend, I don't want to take up 3 hours of your time talking about all that stuff when we have separate videos for each of those things. So just bear with me with all of my links in the comments, or links in the description box, tidbits. But I just want to be able to show you these tutorials and point you into the direction where you can find them. Okay, so that was the make your own pantry mixes. Point number 3 is to grow multi-purpose plants. Now, I know that not everybody watching this is a gardener. I totally get it. There was once upon a time I wasn't a gardener either. And also once upon a time I thought it was way too time consuming to garden. Today, even though I'm a stay-at-home mom, even though we homeschool, I work from home. And so I'm not available all day, every day to go outside and tend to the garden. I spend 30 minutes in the evening tending, and then I spend a couple hours on the weekends, and that's it. Even though I have the ability, I'm here at home, I still don't have that time liberty to spend that much time on the garden. So it is absolutely possible. I can tell you with 110% confidence that it is possible to garden even if you feel like you don't have enough time. And this kind of goes back to the first kind of point, the rant, which I'm going to try not to rant anymore, but that first little point of the cost of convenience making us too dependent on someone else to feed us. This is one of those skills that is so worth investing in now when we might not need them, which we're getting to the point where most families do kind of need to start producing their food to offset, at least some of it, to offset the cost at the grocery store. It's not just about bare shelves. It's not just about, well, I can't find food anymore. It's about, can you afford the food on those shelves? So if you don't know how to garden already, I want to start with 3 recommendations for just 3 plants to start with. You don't have to have a half an acre. You don't have to have a quarter of an acre. You can grow 3 plants that are the most multi-purpose that I have found after almost a decade of gardening. Those are tomatoes, potatoes, and zucchini. With tomatoes, I feel like it's kind of obvious with all the different things that you can make with tomatoes. You've got your salsas, you've got your, I totally forgot that I've had all these jars to show you as I was talking, and I totally forgot. But you have your sauces, you have your pizza sauce, your pasta sauce, tomato powder, diced tomatoes, crushed tomatoes, tomato juice. I mean, how many things do we eat that have tomatoes in them? Think about growing just enough tomatoes. What if you live in an apartment and you can only grow 6 tomato plants in 6 grow bags on your patio? And let's say you can only produce 20 pounds of tomatoes from those 6 plants. You're going to get more than 20 pounds, by the way, from 6 plants. But let's just pretend, be extra super conservative, and say you get 20 pounds of tomatoes from those 6 plants. Those 20 pounds of tomatoes are going to get you many, many, many jars of salsa. Calculate how much a jar of salsa is. I don't know. I haven't bought it in 2 years. But let's pretend, I almost don't want to embarrass myself by throwing out a number, like how out of touch I am with how much salsa costs at the store. But let's pretend it's $3.50 at the store. Multiply $3.50 by, let's say, 10. Let's say you get 10 pints out of your 20 pounds of tomatoes, because you mix in onions, you mix in peppers and stuff like that, and you can buy those at the store. But let's multiply $3.50 by 10. You've saved $35 just on growing tomatoes, and 6 plants is totally feasible. Potatoes. Again, do I need to list all of the ways that we can use potatoes? shredded potatoes, hash browns, chunked potatoes, potato patties, potato casserole, mashed potatoes. There are so many things that we can do with potatoes. And there might be a day coming in the near future when we need to stretch our meals as far as possible. Are we not in that time now? If you kind of get what I'm saying, there might be a time when we need to use potatoes to stretch meals and feed bellies as frugally as possible. Potatoes are the easiest things to grow. You can grow them in grow bags, in containers, in pots, so you don't have to have land. You can grow them in raised beds. They just grow so easily. We have a tomato guide and a potato guide that walks you through step by step everything you need to know to grow those two items. And we even talk to you about how to preserve it, how to can tomatoes, how to dehydrate potatoes, how to can potatoes, how to use those things, because using dehydrated foods and canned foods is a little bit different than using them in their fresh forms. So we talk about all of that as well. The tomato guide and the potato guide, the tomato guide and the potato guide will be linked in the description box below. It has all the information you need to get growing those two staple crops. Crop number 3 that I highly recommend, zucchini. Why do I recommend it? Because it grows like a weed. Most people who try gardening and feel like they can't garden because maybe they feel like they don't have a green thumb or they just haven't seen much success, even those people, when you're just starting out, can have success with zucchini because of how quickly it grows, because of how much food it produces, and how little maintenance is required besides squishing the squash bugs. But zucchini is something that everyone has in abundance in the summer, and one of the incredible things about it is just how multi-purpose it is. You can can it. This is something that I have absolutely loved in the last year or so, is turning the zucchini into pineapple. You can can chunked zucchini in pineapple juice and it tastes like pineapple. This year I'm going to be experimenting with doing it in all sorts of different juices to see if I can get a cherry flavored and a grape, maybe not a grape, that sounds kind of weird, maybe not grape, but all different types of flavors, and using that because canned fruit prices are through the roof. You can use zucchini for your traditional zucchini bread. You can spiralize it and use it as pasta. There are so many things you can do with zucchini, and zucchini is something that you don't necessarily have to know how to can in order to preserve it. It freezes beautifully. So if you're just starting out, you don't know how to can, you don't know how to dehydrate, just freeze it. Freeze it in different size gallon bags. A lot of people will do the spirals and they will vacuum seal them. Some people will puree their zucchini and freeze them in pint-sized baggies to make zucchini breads later on, zucchini muffins, all the things. Zucchini fritters, fantastic side dish, very fast. There's just a lot of different things you can do with zucchini. So potatoes, tomatoes, and zucchini. If you are brand new to gardening, if you've never gardened before, use this. I hope this is inspiration for you to get out there and get growing now when maybe you don't absolutely need to, but it is wise to go ahead and know and learn these skills now, and it will help you now. It's not, you didn't have to be something that helps you 10 years down the road. It can save you 40, 50, 60% on your grocery budget now by eating those foods that you grew yourself. Okay, number 4. And this is different. I feel like I'm going to get some flack or kickback on it, which I totally understand. But point number 4 is to ditch the recipes. I grew up when Pinterest was first hit the scene. I don't know what grade I was in, but Pinterest, it wasn't a thing, and then it got invented, and then it was a thing, and it just spread like wildfire. And it kind of, I feel like it almost, not brainwashed, but it kind of trained our brains of the youth of that generation to need all these fancy recipes to feel like a good cook. And that is not the case. One of the things that I have absolutely loved that has blown me away with this lifestyle that I now lead, which is trying to grow as much of my own food as possible and canning and dehydrating it, is once I got to the stage of using those foods, it hit me that I don't need recipes. If I just use the foods that I grew and that I stocked in bulk, flour, rice, beans, pasta, all of those things, if I take a carb a pasta or a potato, and I take a meat. I've got my canned deer meat, I've got my canned ground beef, I've got my canned chicken, and then I take all these vegetables that I'm growing, and I have all these herbs that I'm growing and dehydrating for spices, and I can just mix and match and put together a fantastic dish that didn't even need a recipe. One of the things that I think recipes, especially ones that have 20, 30 ingredients, which Pinterest is full of those, they make us think that we have to go and buy that ingredient that is in that recipe in order to make it. At least that's what it made me think when I was younger and was super into Pinterest. And I'm not saying Pinterest is bad, but just hear me out on the recipe thing. It's just we don't need those Pinterest perfect dinners with 20 or 30 ingredients, especially when there's 5 of them that you don't have, so you're going to rush to the store and spend that money that doesn't necessarily need to be spent on ingredients that are going to be used one time. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I'm coming from as far as ditch the recipes. And when you are cooking with single ingredient foods, either that you bulk bought or that you grew or that you bought at the farmer's market and froze or dehydrated or canned, when you have those single ingredient foods, that meal is naturally a whole food meal. You can pronounce and see every ingredient that went into that meal. And that's what blew me away. I never thought, I knew that I was doing this for my health. I knew that I was doing this to be a wise steward of my resources. I knew I was doing this to help my children grow up, eating healthy meals and knowing where their food comes from. But it never dawned on me that the meals that I would make with all of those things were going to be, 99% whole foods, which is just incredible. So not only are you saving on cost, you are saving with health and just the ability to eat whole foods without having to buy those really overpriced health foods at the store. Okay, last but not least, point number 5, and that is to make and can your own beans. I don't want to sound like a broken record. I know I have talked about making and canning your own beans in other videos, but I never know who's going to watch this video who hasn't seen the other videos, and it is just such a cost saver, such a budget saver to buy dried beans in bulk and can them up yourself at home. You can get, well, in my area, I'll caveat it with that. In my area, you can get a 1-pound bag of dried beans from Walmart for $1. Some beans are more expensive. The northern beans tend to be more expensive, but the pinto beans, you can get a 1-pound bag of dried pinto beans for $1. That 1-pound bag of dried pinto beans converts into, what was it? I want to say 6 pints. I can't remember off the top of my head. I've done the calculations before, but I want to say 6 pints out of that 1 pound. Again, I haven't bought beans in so long. Did I write it down? I don't think I wrote it down. I think they're nearing $2 a can for cooked beans at the store. When you can pay $1 for a bag of beans that will get you 6 cans. I mean, the savings is just incredible. Again, if you don't know how to can beans, no problem. We have a step-by-step tutorial on how to can beans. It could not be easier. The best thing to do is the night, plan for a day when you want to can up some beans, and the night before, just go ahead and set out those beans and soak them in water. The next day, you are off to the races with canning, and it is boom, 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 just a few steps, very easy. Like I said, we have a step-by-step tutorial for how to can dried beans, and I will link that in the description box below. Okay, y'all, I hope that was helpful to you. For more money-saving tips, strategies, recipes, ideas, food storage, how-tos, all of those things, canning, dehydrating, we have our book, Food Prep Guide book. It is chock full of practical tips like the ones that I shared in this video and step-by-step tutorials. We made the subtitle A Plan for Money-Saving, Self-Sustaining Abundance in Hard Times because we felt like we were probably moving into a time period when hard times is a very big possibility, and how can we help people prepare? Not in a doomsday thing, not in a fear-mongering way, but just in a wise, how do we prepare for the economy that we find ourselves in? And everyone can see the economy that we find ourselves in. So this is just full of strategies to really make the most of your dollar at the grocery store during these times. We will have that linked in the description box below and on the screen somewhere right about there. That's all for today, and we'll see you next time. Bye.